Hi, everyone. Before we get into the episode, we're starting things a little bit differently. First of all, we want to thank you so much. We saw the insight for the number of listens this last week, and the numbers were very humbling. So thank you so much for listening. Special shout out to Patrick Kampmeyer, who is, you can see, is the number one fan. You can always email us at talkingtwinpeaks@gmail.com. We will take a look at your comments, questions, concerns, insights that you want to give us as well. We very, very happy to hear from you. Joe, do you have anything else to say to the amazing fans that we have?
Yeah, please send all your YouTube covers of just you and I to Paul. He loves that song so much. Yeah, thank you guys. It's awesome knowing you guys are all out there listening. It's really fun for us to do, and we're glad that you're up. You guys are listening to us ramble about a show we love. So.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. If someone does, if I start getting an influx of you and I covers, I will put them on our YouTube channel. We will put them on the Joe Down, and we will actually play them on our podcast. That is something I will totally do. So, all right. Well, yes, from both Joe and I, thank you again, and we hope you enjoy this episode, part 12.
Hi, and welcome back to a podcast above a convenience store, Talking Twin Peaks. I'm Joe Fremming. With me, as always, is Paul Muad'Dib. Paul, how you doing?
It's me destiny, Joe.
Yeah, it is.
It's me destiny to be here. It's me destiny to be here, Joe.
Took the words right out of my fucking mouth.
Fuck it, Ray.
Yeah, we're toward the end of our little journey here, Paul. We're on part 17 of The Return. The past dictates the future. We only have one more episode and then 2 more podcasts after this.
Yes. Well, so yes, I'll let everyone know ahead of time. Yes. So we got this episode. We got 18. We got the final dossier, and then we have the skeleton key to Twin Peaks book, and then there is a 5th episode, but you and I aren't recording it. It's already been recorded, and that is the interview with a never peaker. So that will also come out. So you guys have, we got 5 things coming out, and then you and I have discussed this, but I think we can let the listeners know we'll be transitioning to another type of podcast.
Yep. Yeah, we will be doing a music podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's similar to like what we've done with our respected other projects with Cast That Movie and the Joe Down, but I think it's going to be it's not going to be as antagonistic.
No.
What we're going to be doing is we're going to be reviewing an album each week.
Yep.
One gets to pick, the other has no say in it. And we'll be doing research and stuff into it, and we're still going to be working out the kinks on that, but it'll be interesting. We're both music nerds. We know a lot of like weird factoids about crap that nobody cares about. So that should be interesting.
Real interesting. Yeah. I think that's gonna be part where I'm gonna go and do is like some of these albums that have like a really weird backstory. and going that route. And then also when we find out about the Twin Peaks, and I read something real quick before we get into this episode about, we talked last week that David Lynch has this project called Wisteria. And we said we don't think it's going to be a Twin Peaks project. We think it's going to be Ronnie Rocket. Well, I read something today, of all things, that there's some people and there's some hints and there's more people that are leaning towards that this is going to be a Carrie Page project.
It could be. The Wisteria, like I mentioned in the last podcast, is, there's a road in Odessa, Texas. It depends. We have no idea what Lynch has up his sleeve. We do know Mark Frost has no involvement with it. But that doesn't necessarily mean anything because he didn't really have any involvement with Fire Walk with Me. So who knows?
Who knows? I am hoping, personally, I know this is going to be crazy coming from, because people want it. I'm personally hoping for Ronnie Rocket.
I am too. I mean, we've been doing a podcast on Twin Peaks for almost a year now.
Yeah,
I would like to see Lynch do something. I'd like to see him do something different.
And not to say that I don't want a continuation. Like, personally, for me, I would rather get a book by Mark Frost with a forward by David Lynch for the next Twin Peaks thing. I would love a book.
Honestly, I'm good if we never get Twin Peaks again.
Okay, fair.
I think The Return and the Final Dossier wrapped it up again. But Lynch has been known to leave the world of Peaks to return. So who knows? Who knows?
All right, Joe. Let's get started. Let's get us going on this episode before I go on another weird ass tangent.
Yeah, and again, all apologies to Al Strobel from the last episode. Paul went off the rails.
God damn it.
Wildly inappropriate, I thought. You're gonna restrain yourself because he is in this episode. I just please leave the man alone. He has enough. He's been through enough, Paul. You put him through the ringer last time.
I will. There's gonna be. I'm just gonna keep my mouth shut because there's gonna be some things going on in this episode.
All right. Okay. This episode it begins. I believe probably shortly after Tammy and Albert shot Diane into another dimension. Cole's sitting with his gun. He couldn't do it. He couldn't shoot Diane. Maybe he's gotten soft in his old age. Not where it counts. Not where it counts, buddy.
Not where it counts, buddy. Of course he threw that in there.
Yeah. Then this is where Cole gives us more information on Judy. Which was an entity called Jowday. We get, so he's been working behind the scenes more than he's let on. Like, same with how Albert has worked behind the scenes more than he's let on. So we can kind of see that they all have they're filled with secrets. Okay.
I want to dissect this part a little bit here. This is one of the tangents I knew where I was going to go down in this episode. What Gordon Cole's laying out here is in direct contrast to what we read in The Secret History, though. In terms of the fact that Major Briggs and Cooper were together the whole time, right? If you remember from Secret History, Briggs wasn't sure that he was supposed to be contacting Cooper. When they were finally going to meet, it wasn't Cooper, it was Mr. C.
Mm-hmm.
So there is some retconning going on here.
Paul, this episode retcons the whole fucking show.
Well, okay. I understand that. I'm just saying retcon. All right, let's not get there quite yet. And I want to sum up, says people always ask about what the fuck Jaude or Jude is, okay? And I want to clear this up once and for all, because there is, quote, real world or real text about this character, okay, or this entity. It's an ancient Sumerian. Now, to understand, Sumerian dates back to probably one of the original religions in the world, dating back to at least 3000 BC. Now, it's spelled Joudy. Jode was a female form of Utuku, which was an escaped wandering demon that feasted on human suffering. It was said that in the Sumerian text, and this is where Baal comes from, that if the male and female forms were ever married while on Earth, the union would produce an even more malevolent being, hastening the end of the world. So this does explain in some way to me why Bob was seeking out Jude. Even though he was born from it, they were the male and female of this particular even worse demon. So this comes from Sumerian mythology. So I know the reason why I want to bring that up is because there's a lot of things that I've been hanging on to till we got deeper into these episodes to really touch base on. So that's what Judy or Jaude is in terms of where Lynch got the idea from.
Ask you something real quick, just because it's on my mind? Because
Yeah.
you said these entities would combine and create basically another entity, which would bring on the end of the world. It's interesting because Jaude is in Sarah, Bob was in Leland, and they produced Laura. So it's kind of cool how that kind of factors in a weird way. You know what I mean?
Yep. And think about it. That's why Bob wanted Laura so bad, because that would have been the ultimate power. That's my theory.
Yep. That makes 100% sense to me, Paul.
Yeah.
And I agree.
Yeah. Okay. I'm glad you liked it. Yeah. This is something I've been sitting on this entire podcast. Because I want to make it very, I consider myself a amateur scholar of theologian, of religions, of all of them. But I'm not. Sumerian is something that is like really, really, really complicated and deep to get into, because it is so old, and it's from a time where writing really, really, really wasn't a big thing. And there's all these different deities and gods and times and the Babylonians and all these things and different takes from it. So it's very difficult to be able to disseminate what was real Sumerian and what was modernized Sumerian, like people that threw in their own 2 cents compared to what was there. So take it for what it is. If you're going to go down a Sumerian rabbit hole, you got to go into it with a very, very critical, very, 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 very critical eye of what you're being told. So there you go.
It seems like it's really open to interpretation.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. When you get
the basics of it is so hard to decipher because there was no written language.
Right. Because it was, again, this 3,000-year-old, and it wasn't. It was, there was other groups, just like it's kind of like if you try to take, we understand between the Greeks and the Romans because it's more current history, where a lot of the gods from the Greeks, the Romans believed in, they had different names, that type of thing. A lot of that went on with Sumerians because there was other groups that followed the Sumerian, but they all, just like anything, we have how many versions of Christianity. You have it's the same thing with Sumerian. So it's hard to dig into what was original Sumerian. I'm sorry, I just wanted to say that. So that's what's been going on this whole time in that regards. Now, what's really also interesting to me in this scene is we find out that Gordon Cole was the informant to Ray Monroe when we thought it was Albert that was working with Ray the whole time.
Yes, I got that completely mixed up.
Yep. We both did. So, that was kind of this thing of that regard. So yeah, it was Cole that was working with, and he was working with Jeffries because he's aware that Jeffries isn't around any normal sense.
Yeah, this what he says is Jeffrey, who doesn't exist anymore, not in the normal sense. So Cole is more attuned with whatever these lodges, other worlds are. It seems.
Very much so. But again, I just want to talk about, even though this episode does retcon the whole goddamn thing, and we'll get to that, because we don't really find that out until next episode. I mean, we know, but
we see it at the very end.
Yes, and there's a big clue at the very end, I believe. So,
yeah, I like that Sumerian thing, and like how they kind of play with that mythology. We all know Lynch is very interested in philosophies and all that. So like this seems like a perfect like match with Frost, who's like very much the historian, and then Lynch is very much attuned to like not spiritual, but like more deeper thinking. So.
Yes, he is big into, he's into transcendental. We talked about this, transcendental meditation. He's into numerology. He's into a lot of different things. So yeah, this is like a perfect marriage. Like, I think this is why Lynch and Frost work well together. Like this right here explains why Lynch and Frost work so well together.
Yeah, they play off each other and it really shows off their strengths writing wise here.
Yes.
Lynch is very much amazing with the visual arts, but like I think like when we get this and like again playing with the dynamic of Jaude and the basically the Antichrist, and then you got that overlap with the Palmer family. Like it makes it fun as a fan.
It does make it fun as a fan, and this is one of the things. And I don't want to give too much away on our final recorded broadcast, but this is something where the Skeleton Key, the other book we're going to be going into, really talks about these layers. Now, I don't want to give anything too much away beyond that until we get to that actual podcast, because I have theories about that as well. But yeah, I just there is so much going on here because. Like, if you read The Secret History, what you're being told by Cole is completely contradicts some things. So if we are to believe in the world of this, it means that Briggs, even in the secret dossier, was leaving things out, or like we know about with his handler, continuity isn't David Lynch's strong point. We know that David Lynch didn't read either two of the books, so he doesn't know exactly what was put in there.
Well, but I think he knew what was in there. But we also have inconsistency with Secret History and the show itself, which leads me to think that like the Secret History almost acts as an unreliable narrator in a sense.
Yes.
And considering Briggs is so into the secrecy, having a written thing, I think he has to, in the basic gist of how everything's confidential. I think he's throwing the reader into different areas in case it's found by the wrong people.
I also think that's what was going on there as well.
Maybe a little bit, but like we got Norma's, Norma's parents. That didn't make any sense, and because Norma's mom died in the book when she was young. But then we got Final Dossier touches upon that a bit, but yeah, I think there's like a lot of things going on here where it's unreliable for a purpose.
Yes, it's unreliable for a purpose, but also we've talked about this too. There is the real life implications going on as well of that. David Lynch hated and Mark Frost hated some of the stuff that was done in the second season. So this is a way for them to 25 years later change some of that as well.
Yeah. So so off that tangent, we do get like some things. So Ray, cryptic message that the Cooper in the prison in Buckhorn, or not in South Dakota, was looking for coordinates from Briggs. So we got that. That's when we find out Cole was the handler on that, posing as Jeffries to Mr. C and Ray Monroe. That fucker Ray. Yeah, and then the FBI calls and they found Dougie Jones. And they just don't know where he is.
Yes.
Which I forget what Albert says, but it's like he makes a crack like this is what is this like a Marx Brothers movie?
Right. Yeah. Because he finds him. We found him, but he's missing. Yeah. I love Albert. I fucking love Albert. And but then Bushnell comes wandering in, and he's like, "Is that so and so? Is that Gordon Cole?" So funny.
Yeah.
So funny.
Yeah, and he reads the message to Cole that he's Cooper's heading to Sheriff Truman's. Mm-hmm. He gives a time. I didn't get time to write it down, but it ultimately adds up to like 10, the number of completion, which kind of goes into the numerology. I think
it was 253. It's 253, which leads up to 10.
Yep. 10, the number of completion. Again, like Lynch loves numerology and just playing with numbers and all that. So it's kind of interesting. Tammy looks up the goings on of Douglas Jones. She brings up the fact that he was hospitalized because he stuck a fork in an electric socket, to which Albert says, "That's strange, even for Cooper."
Yeah. They tried to take out his car. They did this. They did that. Oh, it's so funny.
Yeah, just
just absolutely
got him to
brilliant.
Speed of what Cooper's been up to the past week. It's just...
It's hilarious. They tried to blow up his car. He was attacked by a infamous hitman. All this stuff, like the Spike. All this shit that they start bringing up. So next we're back at the Twin Peaks cell block. Oh, stupid Chad. Chad's so goddamn dumb. Doesn't say that Chad's
so goddamn dumb.
Chad is so goddamn dumb. Okay. So poor man's Jeffrey Ross is, let's just say he's trying to do something, but once the drunk wakes up, Chad stops doing what he was going to do. Nadia is still chirping away, chirpy, chirp.
Yep. And before we brought this up, I watched this. It's the first time I watched The Return on headphones. Mm-hmm. And like a lot of like the weird effects and sounds like really like make it more creepy, and it gives a lot of atmosphere. So like if next time I watch The Return, I'm going to watch them with headphones on, because it adds like a layer that I did not know was there. And you said you picked up on that because you have subtitles on.
Yeah, I have subtitles on, so it was saying like and scratching sounds and like on the subtitles. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it sounds like a Nine Inch Nails like score almost.
Yeah, and you hear, there's a scene, one of the transitions where it's going across the electrical wire, and you hear the swishing and the scratching and that type of thing. So then, okay, next we see Ben getting a phone call. That his brother made. So now we thought it was Idaho. He made it all the way to fucking Wyoming, man.
That's a trek, man. That's enough distance where I think he stumbled upon one of these portals or lodges.
Okay, because a flight from Seattle, Washington to or from Spokane to the capital of Wyoming is 3.5 hours long. Okay. And that's a nonstop flight. It by car, it takes 15 hours to get from Washington to again in there. So even if we take it away, it's about 12 hours by car if you're just gonna get into Wyoming. Now, I want to look up where Jackson Hole is, because that's where he ended up. Was Jackson Hole, Wyoming.
I believe, that's because that's near Yellowstone too.
That's right across the border, actually. That's right across the border. So we know Twin Peaks is somewhere in the northeast. So
near the Canadian border.
Near the Canadian border, and Jackson Hole's right there. So he made it all the way, And the most direct way there, honestly, is if you were to walk across Montana and come down. Okay? So, or, he had to go, or he could have gone down to Oregon and crossed over. Like, that's another direct way if he'd gone down to Oregon and crossed over in the Jackson. The point is that in a week of sleeping, arguing with his foot, with bad binoculars, bad binoculars.
Well, Paul, he says those binoculars killed somebody.
Those binoculars killed somebody, which makes that scene from last episode even better. Where he was yelling at the binoculars, bad binoculars, bad binoculars. So the point is, yeah, he was in a wormhole.
When they found him, he's completely naked too.
Yes. So there was something there because, yeah. So he did not make it there in the normal in normal senses. Did not happen. So
it's just hilarious. Just the guy on the other end of the line. Just like, bring some clothes. He found him. He's completely naked.
And then he just hangs up on him. Then he just hangs up on Ben. So great. So
now we have Mr. C, who followed the coordinates, brings him pretty much Jackrabbit's palace.
Yes, takes him to Jackrabbit's palace. So we know now that he was trying to get into the White Lodge. So it does go to say that the White Lodge and the Black Lodge do not know where each other's lodge entry points are. That's been established from this point, right? Right? We can agree with that?
Yep,
okay.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
It's sucked into a vortex, like similar to what we saw with when Andy.
Yep.
And when Cole and Buckhorn, when he saw the dirty bearded men sitting in a room.
Yes.
then he's sucked into the White Lodge. We got Briggs's head floating.
Yep.
And Mr. C's head is floating, but it's in a cage.
Yes, Mr. Yep. So they knew he was coming. And when we see Major Briggs there, I think we can assume, like we had talked about earlier, that Briggs was kind of in between worlds. I think Briggs is now kind of part of the White Lodge.
Yeah. Do you think this was a trap for Mr. C too?
Yeah, absolutely. I think
it felt like that, especially with the cage. It felt like they intended to trap him.
Yep. They knew exactly where he was, and it looks like that he was trying to get to Sarah Palmer's house.
Yeah, because it's on the screen, and I think that screen kind of showed his intentions of like his destiny, where he wanted to like find where Judy is. The fireman sees this, and he just kind of whooches it away, so it falls on the sheriff's station.
Right.
And then another element of oddness, C is then sucked into a giant horn and then spat out on the screen to the sheriff's station.
Yeah, it's well, okay, so it's weird, but if we remember episode 8, it's very reminiscent of that. So it's kind of like, okay, that's cool. I'll buy it. Like that's how they do stuff in this White Lodge. So yes, I think Jeffries was in on it with the White Lodge and with Briggs, and that that this is what it was. Yep, I think this is completely a trap. And they needed the time. In order to get the trap set, I think.
Yep. And then so he's on the road to the sheriff's station, and NATO seems to immediately know.
Yeah.
Senses his presence, and it feels like he senses her presence too.
That's what I thought was, because, yeah, I think they both did, because she starts freaking out, and he's acting kind of, weird for Mr. C.
Yeah, he even says, "What is this?"
Yep, he's confused.
And then we get Andy with his picnic basket.
Yeah, we get Andy with his picnic basket, which is amazing. And Agent Cooper, is that you? Agent Cooper, it is you.
And it seems like Mr. C can turn on like that Cooper charm when he needs it.
Yes.
Yes. Like, hi, Andy. You know, it still feels off, but it still kind of feels like Cooper. So I think he's able to do that when he can, or when the situation demands it. Meanwhile, Chad is in his cell, and we see that in the heel of his shoe, he has keys hidden. This is why they rookie mistake, Hawk and Andy and Frank. You got to take off their shoes when you put them in jail.
Right. Because so this is what we find out he wanted was the key. Okay, this is why Chad's fucking. This is why dollar store Jeffrey Ross is stupid. Because it didn't matter. The drunk guy's drunk. Why are you waiting? You have the key to get out. Why the fuck are you waiting for him to go to sleep when you got Nadia, you had Freddie, and you had James in the other cells? Why the fuck do you care if the fucking drunk is sleeping? Just do your thing and get out.
Yeah, the only thing I could see is that if the drunk starts making noises to draw attention down there. But I mean, he's already doing it anyway with mimicking NATO's weird squeaks. So it didn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, no, it didn't make a whole lot of sense. And that's my thought. It didn't make a whole lot of sense at all.
Yeah, and we're saying this about a show where, you know, the main antagonist was born out of a giant fucking vomit woman during the atomic bomb testing. So things making sense. I just, you know, take it with a grain of salt.
Take it with a grain of salt. Yes.
All right. Now Andy brings Mr. C into the sheriff's station. Everybody's excited to see Cooper again. Lucy is.
Yep. Lucy is.
C looks confused at Frank.
Yep. Sheriff Truman. And he's like, he's like, well, yeah, you know, I'm Harry's brother, Frank. You know, and then he's like, hey, do you want to come meet? And like, this is where, well, let's just keep going because I'm gonna, when we get to the end of this, I want to discuss this whole scene.
All right.
So go ahead.
Well, then, so Frank invites C, who he thinks is Cooper, to his office, and he gets a premonition of sorts of what he saw when he was in the White Lodge, of an urgent moment with him and Lucy, and this causes him he has to go down into the cells.
And very important, he tells Lucy.
Yeah, very important. Chad's out of his cell. He goes to his locker. He's grabbing shit. We get some of that. Then we go back into Frank's office. Andy offers C a seat, and then the giant red flag is this Cooper turns down a cup of coffee.
Yep. Right away we know. Yep, we know something. Like if it had been Harry, he would have known something was up right then and there.
Yep.
And so he's like, "What are you here for?" He's like, "Unfinished business," which I'm going to assume is Nadia.
Either Nadia.
That's
I think he sensed her, but like his ultimate goal is Sarah. This seems like he has to get this done before he goes on to that.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
But I mean, who knows? It just seems like it. You know, it didn't seem like he was searching for Nadia because it seemed like his big thing was Judy with the glass box and everything. But he senses her, so he knows something's up. And then out in the cells, Chad pulls his gun on Andy.
So dumb.
And, you know, he's like calling him an idiot and all that. We see Freddie with his trusty green glove. Ready to, you know, he's kind of doing what Bushnell was doing when he was like, you know, looks like a prize fighter, you know, like opening and clenching his fist.
Yep.
And when Chad's close enough, punches the damn cell door open, knocking Chad on his ass.
Well, so what's really interesting is, okay, so even though Andy handcuffs and chance up to him, in the subtitles it says the body drops. So the subtitles, it implies that killed Chad.
Yeah, it could have. I mean, his punches fucked people up.
His punches fuck people. He doesn't look good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he knocked a jail door open and into like the face of this guy. So there's a good chance Chad didn't survive.
Exactly. And like I said, the subtitle says the body drops. So I'm like, oh shit. And then Andy kind of changed them up. You're like, oh, okay, it must have been the interpretation wrong there. So yes, that happened. And then Frank Lucy's like, hey, there's an important call you gotta take. He's like, take a message. She's like, no, you gotta take this call.
Yep.
And it's our real Cooper.
Yep. He's just entering the Twin Peaks city limits. Is the coffee on?
Yep. And Frank's staring at Mr. C. Mr. C gleans what's going on, gets ready to shoot him. And now this is an interesting take because the hat moves.
Yeah, I think he fired it. It just grazed the hat. Is what I took from it.
Okay. And
it's kind of comical. It's like an old Western where a guy gets their hat shot at. You know, and we all know Lynch loves those old-timey movies, so I think he put it in there for comic effect. But Paul, let's talk here. Season 2 really did Lucy and Andy wrong.
Yep.
We've talked about this ad nauseum during the Season 2 reviews. Fuck. Lucy is redeemed. She takes out Mr. C.
Yep. It is Lucy that shoots and incapacitates, I'm not even going to say kills, incapacitates Mr. C. And then she says she finally figured out how cell phones.
Yeah. You know, it just took shooting a man in cold blood to realize that's how cellular phones work.
Yep. And it's, you know, and then when this happens, he brings Andy brings up everyone, and you know they're all in this room, and so that's Frank, Nadio, James, and Andy, and then Hawk comes flying in, and he's like, Cooper said don't touch him. He's like, but it is Cooper. No, it's not.
It's important to remember he used the word it instead of he.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's because Cooper warned, don't touch him. Nobody touch Mr. C.
Yep.
Then the office starts getting dark. And then we see what we saw in part 8 with the woodsman doing their thing with the body, except it's different this time. Out of his chest or belly or whatever, an orb emerges.
So, okay. I want to say it's a little bit different, but it's not, because remember the orb came out before and then the orb went back in. So I think this is part of the process where the orb's out, but because everyone's there now, Bob, the plan changes for Bob. He's not going back in the body. That's my thought.
Yeah. Well, it'd be foolish because C would just get killed again.
Yep.
Yeah. So this is Bob's last ditch effort to avoid his fate of going back to the Black Lodge.
Yep. And so Cooper comes flying in, and then Cooper's like, hey, are you Freddie?
That's right. And this is my destiny.
This is me destiny. And then he gets attacked and looks like he gets killed. He's all bloody. Then, okay. You get some really weird angles. You get
a lot of Dutch angles here.
A lot of movement, a lot of things around. You know a lot of this is out of necessity because Frank Silva's dead.
Yep.
And you know, David Lynch did not want to replace him. David Lynch is loyal that far, you know, when it comes to things like that. So, you know, this is kind of what that is. And you know, he punches it. Then he punches him into a blaze in the ground, like he punches him in the hell.
Yeah, he punched him straight to hell. And I remember, so you and I discussed this after this episode aired. I think it was the next day, and I think we both jokingly said, "This is as close as David Lynch will ever get to a Marvel movie."
Yes. Yes, we did. This is the close. Yeah, like if you wanted to know this is a superhero Lynch movie, this is what it would look like. Which makes me wish he would have done like a Superman instead of Richard Donner, but that's neither here nor there.
Hey man, we all know his experience with Dune made him not really interested in projects that aren't really his own. It's cool though. Like, so he punches into hell and it emerges again, like kind of like it looks like it has like cinders on it, like it's been burned. Then you hear, it's kind of like subtle, but you hear Frank Silva from the pilot, the international pilot, but then in like episode, "Catch You with My Death Bag," which I thought was pretty cool. Repurposing that.
Yep, catch you. I will catch you with my death bag, and then
slightly slower too to make it a little more menacing.
I agree with you on that one. Yeah, I think it was. Yep.
And then, Freddie gets attacked again, and he's had enough. So he just punches the Bob orb so hard, it literally just breaks apart.
So, yes. Just fucks him up.
We don't know. Do you think after this, Freddie could finally take that glove off? Or do you think he's doomed to forever have,
So I'm glad we both went there, because that was my thought. I'm thinking he could take the glove off now.
I think so, too. He did his job. He did his part. He did his destiny.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's my thought. He did his destiny. That this is where it ends. Yep. You and I are in the same boat with that. Yep.
And then, Cooper's like, "You did it, Freddie," and he puts the jade ring on Mr. C, who then vanishes to the Black Lodge, and he erupts into flames. To which Rodney Mitchum, "That's one for the grandkids."
and Jim Belushi's just,
Oh. Yeah, Belushi had some pretty good reactions. Took when Bobby comes in after, he's like, "What's going on here? What happened?" Like, "You took the words right out of my fucking mouth."
Yeah. Yes, so good. So, yeah, there's just awesome. I mean, again, you and I are not fans of Jim Belushi.
No.
And this is great.
Yeah. Like, I want to see a spinoff of
the Mitchum Brothers?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I think that would be amazeballs. So, all right. So then,
Cooper wants the key to Great Northern Room 315.
Yep, he
knows
wants
Frank
the key.
Has it.
Yep, because Briggs told him he would have it. And then he's commenting, then Bobby comes up. He's like, "Your father was aware of these events." And, yep.
Let's talk about this, too, because now this is like when Cooper's face superimposes over what we're seeing.
Okay, this is
it's not a not so subtle homage to Wizard of Oz.
Okay, so I want to hear
one of Lynch's favorite movies.
Yep. What is your take on what's happening?
It feels like Cooper still part of two different worlds, is what I'm taking from it. He's kind of telling everybody things will be different. I hope to see you again, but like he's still like superimposed. It's kind of the same effect in how it was used in Wizard of Oz. Like, we live in a dream sort of thing. As to like what it signifies, it's tough because it's so open to interpretation at this point. But I think it's Cooper realizing this present time. He says it's going to change, and it does. And I think that's what this is kind of signifying. Time stops. The clock. We look at the clock, and the hands are jiggling it, like it looks like almost like 15 to 3.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's what's going on here.
So
it's like transcending almost.
I'm with you, but I differ. I go a little bit. I think everything that's happening in that room and going on is, I think Cooper is not saying anything to anyone. I think this is going on not only inside his head at this point, but it, as you said, it's going on between the two worlds. Like, I picture it that everything that happens from this point on in this particular area until everything, until the end of this episode, when everything gets retconned, it's happening there. Like, I think that's what the superimposing of the head is to show us that, like, I think Cooper and everyone are just frozen where they are.
I
And
like that. Do you think so? Like when he's telling everybody, and we kind of get like this happy-ish ending. Do you think that's
Mhm.
what Cooper like imagines what he wants this moment to be like?
Yeah, essentially, like, he's creating what is happening here, but he knows everything's going to change. So this is the ending that he's getting of the Wizard of Oz with all of his friends there, and getting that thing in his head before he gets to, before everything changes over, and he is then moved. Because again, I think everything that's happening afterwards, like the whole thing going black, him chanting between two worlds, to use the the old things that we know that Mike and Bob used to use to go places. um I think all of that is all happening like outside of reality.
Yeah, I think outside of reality is his happy ending here is what he
Yep.
wants, and then uh, him vanishing with Cole and Diane. I think that's the next step. What happens, and
See, I don't
that's actually is happening.
see. I don't even think that happened. I mean, it does, but it doesn't. Is what I'm trying to say. Like, I think everything up to the point where he is goes back in time is all just this is like signifying that this is this weird point of, okay, so to put it this way, if we look at the string or the Big Bang theory, it's there's a balloon theory that's attached to it, that the universe constantly expands and then it collapses in on itself. And one of the theories of that would affect time. And what happens is that once everything starts to collapse in on itself, time, the idea is it's a time that lasts eternity. And it's going to feel like an eternity because everything is so compressed. So I think what's happening here is they're kind of getting this effect of, this is the cliff of where time is getting fucked. That's why the clock is going off. That's why everything's happening. I think all of this up to the point where he meets with the point where he meets with the arm is all happening kind of is all happening in that room. Does that make like
Kind of. I still think what happens here is this is kind of like what he envisions, like how he wants his farewell, the happy ending, but his job's not done. Cooper's stuck in a loop of always trying to save Laura Palmer. That's my theory. And so what happens next when him and Diane, this is that happens, I believe, because we get a thing that we'll get to it, but like Jeffrey says, Cole will remember the unofficial version, which is what we just watched through all this. So I think this is actually happening. And so they get sucked because he's changing the past.
Yep.
And we see that has an effect at the very end with Sarah. So I think this is all happening.
Oh, no, I'm not saying it's not happening, but I think what we're seeing is inside his head, right?
Well, I think with him saying goodbye to all his friends.
Yes. He's just kind of, I think in reality, he's just standing there, not moving, not saying anything.
Yeah, I think what happened is like that, as soon as Bob vanished, that's when him, Cole, and Diane.
I can get behind that. I question well, we know Diane, but we also don't know Diane because of what we're going to find out in the next episode. So I even question if Diane was there.
Yeah, we don't even know what. I think that's the real Diane, and I'll I can get into the next episode. But my theory was Cooper put the real Diane in NATO after her trauma of the rape.
Yes.
That's why she's blind.
That's why she
can't
doesn't
see. And then, like, what happens in the next episode is letting her go, and she's in this other world where she can escape that trauma.
Yes,
is what happened with Diane. So I think this is the real Diane, and this is it. In the next episode, that's his gift to her, is the relief of not having to remember.
Okay. Yep. Mine's a combination of that, but I'm gonna stick with yours till the next episode. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. We're on the same page there. We are on the same
Yep.
page.
Yep.
Okay.
We seem to always be on the same page, just slightly different paths.
Exactly.
But
So
that's what the beautiful thing of Twin Peaks is. It's so it's so open to interpretation. I don't think there's a hard edge it's like that YouTube video, guys. Like, this is Twin Peaks. Like, that's your interpretation.
that's your interpretation, and that's why Lynch is very cautious any of his works to say, no, I'm not going to discuss that because that's part of my art. Is I create things that can mean different things to different people.
Yeah. He's once said like he likes the audience to be their own detective.
Yep,
So,
absolutely.
But yeah, so NATO turns into Diane.
Mm-hmm.
Belushi's reaction to that was pretty.
God, I love Belushi in this, which is crazy. I can't say I love him in anything else, but I love him in this.
Yeah, he's good in this. I'll give him credit where credit's due. Cooper and Diane kiss, and then we see the clock, like we talked about. Like, I think a lot of this is just in Cooper's head, romanticizing. I think they just blipped.
Yep.
It was him, Cole, and Diane. Just vanished after Bob vanished. And then, he also says in a very slow down voice, we live inside a dream. A lot of people interpreted this as is Twin Peaks all a dream? In a certain interpretation, yeah. But I would say, the events happened within the show.
Yes. So, okay. So this
that's such a cop out. And I don't think Lynch and Frost would take the easy way out of Twin Peaks with that.
No, I don't think they would. And I think what's happening here is I think this threw people really off. It was this, we all live inside a dream. I think the idea that they have here is that as this show has shown, there is layers upon layers upon layers. It doesn't mean necessarily a dream. Like we'll talk about that. I know we'll talk about that in a later podcast. But I don't subscribe to it in that literally. I take a look at it and I go, because the lodges are outside of time, space, reason. Again, well, let's move on here a little bit, because what happens is he goes in the Great Northern. He ends up in the Great Northern Hotel. By coincidence, it's the furnace room, but it also makes sense because, again, going back to the first episode, where did he see Bob for the first time in the international version? Was in the basement, right?
Yeah. And so I'm sorry. And what I like too here is he has a key to that, what the humming noises that James was kind of following when he was in the basement.
Yep.
Investigating the humming noise that was driving Ben Horn insane.
Yep. Absolutely. And Beverly, who we never saw again. And then he ends up with the arm with Mike. At the Dutchman, and he takes.
Well, hold on before.
Okay.
So they get to the door. Cooper unlocks it, and he looks at Diane, and he says, "See you at the curtain call."
Yes. See you at the curtain call.
There's obviously, that's an old show business.
Sure.
Curtain call at the end of the show. It's also. Curtains, red curtains, and we see it's quite literally a curtain call. Yes,
quite literally a curtain call.
So yeah, I like that. And then he goes to the door. Mike recites the "Fire Walk with Me" poem.
Yep.
And again, I listened to this on headphones, and I think they repurposed the audio from the episode 3.
I think they did too. Yep, I was listening to it and I'm like, that doesn't sound like old Al Strobel. That sounds like young.
Oh, here we go again. Oh,
fuck you. Anyways, so they
too old to recite a poem. He can't have his own dark hair. Jesus.
So, I know. Al Strobel. I do. Anyway,
yeah. So Mike brings him to the Dutchman / convenience store.
Mm-hmm.
And they walk up the stairs. We saw Mr. C walk through. We don't see any woodsmen.
No, but we see the jumping man.
We do see the jumping man. I love the jumping man.
So I am of theory that the jumping man. So there was a thought that the jumping man was Sarah Palmer online. I don't know. No. No, I no, it's not Sarah Palmer.
I don't think it's Palmer. I think that's because because in Fire Walk with Me, the kid with the mask that kind of looked like the Jumping Man, that's Leland behind that mask.
Yep.
Kind of like with we just discussed with Diane. It protects them from they don't have to they're kind of blinded. It's like blind ignorance that they don't have to see the horror that actually happened within their lives.
Right. But in this case, I think the Jumping Man's purpose is, we've seen it twice now with the movement of the electricity, and there it seems to be like like the firemen needed to be there to move the cage and move Mr. C to the next place. Like, it just can't automatically be done. Even though the electricity is the conduit, it seems there needs to be an entity involved, and I think that's the Jumping Man's purpose. The Jumping Man is kind of the catalyst to allow these, again, the Jumping Man, jumping from place to place. I think that's the purpose of the Jumping Man.
I think his purpose is to jump.
Right. He's Sliders the human. So
yes, and and it's you can tell his reactions is different because like when he had to help transport Mr. C, he looked terrified.
Yep,
this is trouble.
Yep,
he doesn't. We don't really get that this time.
No, it's almost like a glee. It's almost like a yes.
He's back to jumping happily again.
He's back to jumping happily again. So then they end up in the same back in the same kind of
hotel. It's like
hotel,
like an off-road motel looking thing.
And he meets up with Jeffries. Okay, so this is what I was going to talk about with this time thing, because he asked about, he's like, I be specific, right? Yep. Like Cooper just walks in, he says, be specific.
Yep.
So it seems to me that Cooper has done, like, this might not be the first time Cooper has messed with time.
Again, and this is kind of goes back to what I was saying. I think this is Cooper's infinite loop, always trying to save Laura Palmer. So this for him this time, I think might be his first time. We don't know, but it's not for Jeffries, who's transcended time.
It's not Jeffries' first time.
It's not Jeffries' first time. Yeah. So he has. That's why be specific. Cooper gives him the date of when Jeffrey. I think it was when Jeffries went to the Philadelphia office.
Yep. Oh well, no.
1989.
Yep, February 23rd, 1989 is when he asked for the date, and then he starts talking about.
I do like. I'll find it for you. It's slippery in here. Yes.
I'll find it here. It's slippery in here, and he then says, he starts bringing up Judy, and then he's like, you were asking about her, right? Which leads me to believe once again that this is again the time. He's not sure when Cooper, what Cooper he's dealing with, what time frame Cooper he's dealing with. So on February, just so you know, February 23rd is when Philip Jeffries resurfaced in Philadelphia. It's also the day Laura Palmer was killed.
Yeah, so, I thought she died on February 16th, 1990.
I think you're right. Yep, you're right. So why did he go to that date? Because
I think that's when Jeffries is like, we're not going to talk about Judy.
Well, yes, but then Cooper gets transported though directly to the woods, where she is.
Yeah, I think, but I don't understand. But he also it's also important to note that Jeffries at this time says Gordon Cole's going to remember the unofficial version, meaning Cole will be he'll remember what we'll get to it with the retconning. Cole's going to remember all that. He's in a unique position where he is allowed to remember both versions of reality.
Yes. He is. He is. He is. Yeah, I think exactly.
But it's weird. Yeah, I don't know why that date for the Philadelphia office, and then he's transferred the night Laura Palmer's murdered, unless we're missing something, which very well could be.
I wonder if we are, because
then he's like, here is where you'll find Judy.
Yep, and he's like, you were asking about that, right?
Yeah. Did you ask me this? Like, so
Yes.
It seems like Jeffries is confused.
Yes, because Jeffrey's not sure what timeline he's dealing with.
Yeah.
And
then we have out of his tea kettle, the Owl Cave logo, which breaks apart into like the logo of I believe it was it the bird mark on Briggs or the Log Lady?
The bird mark was on.
I think it was.
Well, I think it was
the Log Lady. The Log Lady.
The Log Lady.
And because it turns into an 8.
No. I'm sorry. No, Laura Palmer died on February 24th.
Oh, she did? Okay.
She did. Yep. She died on February 24th. So that's why or at least she was found dead on February 24th. So that is why.
Okay.
Yep. So that is why he's taken that date. It took me a while to find it, but yes, because he's driving in. Diane, it's 11:30 a.m. February 24th. I'm entering the town of Tom Peaks. Yep.
All right. So that's why he gets sent. Okay.
Yes.
So the Infinity logo thing turns into an 8, but it's a broken 8 with the missing part kind of moving around.
Yes.
And then that's when Jeffrey says, you can go in now. And a bunch of electricity Mike says electricity, much like, I believe it was the arm.
Yes.
Here, walk with me.
Electricity. Yes, absolutely. Yep.
And after this is when Cooper pulls some Marty McFly bullshit.
Yes.
Which,
yes.
You think, so this is 1989. Do you think Cooper goes to like a dance and plays Smells Like Teen Spirit, and Kurt Cobain's cousin happens to be there, and he's, hey, Kurt, you know that new sound you're looking for?
It could be. Otherwise, it might be the industrial. I mean, Nine Inch Nails, Kurt, it could be, maybe he did some industrial music and was like, hey, Trent, maybe his brother Fred Reznor was hanging out and was like, Trent, you know that banging in the garage you've been trying to find that sound for? Check this guy out. He nailed it.
Cooper's playing Head Like a Hole.
Exactly. So
yes, it's in black and white. It's the night of Laura's murder and Fire Walk with Me. This was done pretty cool, I'll say.
Yes.
It's weird with the time travel. Obviously, no matter what, if you're doing time travel, especially with something like this, I'm gonna think immediately of Back to the Future. So
absolutely. So yes, they go back. You watch all this stuff, and you're rewatching the
right before when James picks up Laura. We get that scene of Leland glaring out the window. I love that
yes
image. And then Laura, they stop, and we get that exchange. And Laura this kind of gives more context now. This seems like why Laura herself seems to be she kind of seems confused like Jeffries was with time, because she's like, Bobby killed a guy. And then she's like, wait, why would I show you that? Like in the movie, it felt like, it was just probably drugs. But I think now we get a little more context, like Laura's between worlds in a sense.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so
she's Cooper, and that's hence why she screams. In Fire Walk with Me. Right.
Like, that's fucked up.
Again, I like how Laura keeps reiterating, like we did. We have like Bobby killed a cop.
Yeah, Bobby killed a cop. Don't forget Bobby killed a cop. And then she jumps off. She runs in the woods, and then Cooper's there. Yep. And she's like, "Do I know you? Oh, I know you from a dream. You're from my dream."
And we get some. We see also waiting in the woods is Leo, Jacques, and Ronette. waiting on
Mhm.
Laura.
So, well, let's get past this part. Then I want to talk. Well, let's talk about this before we get
So
to it.
let's say wait. So she takes his hand and looks like Cooper's leading her, and then we get yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Then we get weird sounds, and you know.
Then we flash to the pilot.
Okay. Now, before we flash the pilot, I want to talk about young Laura Palmer. What do you think they did there?
I think with black and white and making it shadowy, they were able to pull it off. Some makeup and maybe a little bit of CGI.
See, I don't think it was. I don't think it was Cheryl Lee.
It was.
I don't think so.
Well, in the making of The Return, they show her dressed like that in a trailer with Lynch and Kyle. So yeah, that was her.
Oh wow! See, I thought it was Francesca Eastwood, who comes in next episode. I thought it was an uncredited Francesca Eastwood.
Well, it was her. They just with the trick of shadows and darkness, probably make in some heavy makeup. I mean, Cheryl Lee she's taking care of herself.
No, she has, but there's times where that was really the CGI was off-putting. There was a point in the very beginning where it was really good, but I think some of the angles they did not help their cause. Yeah. That's why I thought it was Francesca Eastwood.
No, it was Cheryl.
Okay,
it's one of these things where like they're filming that night, so she's like dressed like young Laura Palmer. She looks older like in that part, but I think like one, it's black and white, and two, it's dark and shadowy. So I think it's a little easier to mask that.
Fair enough. Okay. So then, yes. So then we cut to the pilot.
Retcon.
We pop to the pilot. We see Laura Palmer's body wrapped in plastic disappear.
Yep.
And then
we kind of get to like the scenes of the opening of the pilot. We got Josie putting on the makeup.
Being weird.
Pete and Catherine. I'm going to go fishing.
Mm-hmm.
And he, instead of, and it's like, it looks like it was B-roll. They're just like test shots that Lynch had done. Because it's obviously that's Jack Nance.
Oh, and it's obvious that it's old footage. It's obvious it's old footage.
Yeah, so it looks a lot, it's right from the pilot, but instead of having like Laura, so it looked like he was this like test footage that Lynch was using, and they still had it, and so like instead of like turning around, they just had Pete keep walking forward, and then we see him fishing on the pier. It's really it's cool, but it's like I remember watching it for the first time, like, oh God, are they just like making everything that we've watched and invested in not happen? Then I was like, we've already been invested in that. Like, so like part of my brain was like, oh, they're adding a different mystery now. Yeah. And then the final dossier pushes that spoilers, no longer who killed Laura Palmer. It's where is Laura Palmer?
Right.
But as this happens, the past then with Cheryl and with Laura and Cooper turns to color.
Yep.
Kind of like the Wizard of Oz.
Kind of like the Wizard of Oz because it has now changed.
Yep.
And
Cooper says, we're going home.
Yep, we're going home. Cut to Sarah Palmer freaking out.
And I have theories here too.
Okay, I do too. And she's freaking out and she's trying to destroy this photo of Laura, but time is skipping and fucking with her. What's your theory here, sir?
Well, the past has changed now, and Laura didn't die. And the interesting thing that kind of like the symbolism of that Laura wasn't killed and can't be destroyed by Sarah and Bob at this point is she shatters the frame, but she cannot cut the photo. Did you notice that? Like she cannot.
I did.
No matter how hard she's trying to cut that photo, Laura's photo is impeccable. It's not a scratch.
And I do also feel that because Judy is an entity that's outside, Judy knows what's going on. And Judy's pissed.
Yep.
Like Judy knows that time has been fucked with, that things have been changed, and she is freaking out trying to destroy this. And
Let's also remember the fireman and Senior Dido sent Laura as a counter to Bob and Judy.
Yes. Yep.
And now that Laura's no longer dead, Laura's now a threat.
Yep. Laura's now a threat. And I think that what happens next when he's leading her through the woods towards the White Lodge portal, to the White Lodge portal, but then she gets pulled away and she screams. I think that was an agent of Judy that caused that to happen.
I don't.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we next see Laura in the next episode, it leads me to believe another Cooper is fucking with this Cooper. Because this Cooper is going to bring Laura through the lodge and back to the curtain call, which would be modern, regular Twin Peaks.
Yep.
Where Judy can kill her again.
Oh.
So I think she disappears. I think it's Cooper bringing her to Odessa.
To get her away from Judy so she can't be killed right away?
Because they hide Laura in Odessa. And we agreed on the theory of what Odessa is.
Yes.
We'll get to that next episode.
Yep.
But we hear Laura scream. And it's the sound when she vanishes is like the same sound like when, at least it was very similar to like when the Diane Tulpa was whisked away to the lodge. It was a very similar sound effect. And we hear Laura screaming, the classic Laura scream from Fire Walk With Me, which is, we can say, because this is the last thing we see of this episode for the most part, and it mirrors the next episode. There's theories of these are mirrored and should, you watch them weird ways. I don't think that's it. I just think it's whatever. And then we get The World Turns by Julie Cruz, which is great to see her back.
Yes. So, talking about Julie Cruz, I looked into this a little bit because, we talked about how
we cut edited down her performance in this and pissed her off.
Yeah. So, yeah, he did, and she came after him, but then, like, last year, almost 2 years ago, in 2019, in another interview, she was like, yeah, you know what, me and him are like brother and sister. Like, I don't always agree with what he does, but at the same time, like, I owe Lynch my career. So I can't stay mad at him. So I thought that was really cool.
Yep.
So, but yeah, she was pissed at first. Like, that was like, she went on a big rampage on how he ruined her cut. It was a terrible edit. But now she's like, Lynch does what Lynch does. She's like, I love the guy. And then, well, that's playing Julie Cruz, wonderful. And actually, interestingly enough, the Chromatics are her band.
Yeah, that's cool too.
That was really cool. And, of course, this one's in memory of Jack Nance.
Yeah, we get that footage of him from the pilot, telling Catherine he's going fishing and she has no interest in. Oh, Jack Nance. He's so great as Henry and Eraserhead, one of the goons and one of the goons in Blue Velvet.
Yep.
I love it.
I love Jack Nance. It's so unfortunate that he had those demons and just never got over it. I'm not going to talk shit about a man that's passed away. But, just to kind of discuss a little bit, Jack Nance, he's done a lot of things. He was basically in everything Lynch ever did. Blue Velvet. He was in Dune. Eraserhead. Lost Highway. Fire Walk With Me, Twin Peaks. He was on, I think the only thing he wasn't in was Mulholland Drive. I think that's the only Lynch project.
He was dead.
He was dead by then.
He might have been on the air that Lynch show. I don't know if he was or not, but it's really hard to find that show. So
it is really hard. I've seen it, and not in great things. He was in the Suicidal Tendencies institutionalized music video as well.
Yeah, I didn't know that, but he had his demons. Lynch is pretty open about that, and he died a really weird death, in that it was like a robbery at a donut shop, I believe.
Lynch
thinks he might have been a little tipsy and a little, liquid courage or something. I think that's what Lynch. But whatever, it doesn't matter how he died. He did. He was great in Twin Peaks, and I loved everything I've seen him in. So
yeah. So what happened was I'll discuss the death. This happened in December 29th, 1996. Lynch had lunch. Jack Nance had lunch with two friends, and he had bruises. I mean, he looked beat up. And asked about him, he told him a story about there was a brawl outside a donut shop, and he said he got what he deserved, and said he had a headache. And what happened was he had a subdural hematoma. So he was found dead the next day. And it was also revealed that he had 0.24% of blood alcohol level. So rather than going in and getting it looked at, he got hammered with this subdural hematoma, which, if you know anything about alcohol, it doesn't clot. So that's what basically killed him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And, he had some tragedy. His second wife, she killed herself. His first wife was Kathleen Coulson. We talked about that. And he married Kelly Jean Van Dyke, who was a porn star. That was Dick Van Dyke's niece, and she had killed herself in 1991.
Oof. Yeah, he had a rough go.
He had a very rough go. Yep, he did not have an easy life, Mr. Jack Nance. But all that aside, so yes, essentially. At this point, everything we've ever cared about, this whole podcast, everything we've talked about, has been retconned.
In a sense. And again, and like the people who don't like this, it's like when people are like, retconning like other things. Like you still have the original run of Twin Peaks. You can just watch that. I don't. To me, like people getting upset about retcons like this, it's just like you still have the original. I could watch that then if you don't like this.
Yeah, and the thing of it is that if you put in Fire Walks Me and now you watch this, you know what you know.
And Fire Walks Me retcons a lot of shit too.
The Fire Walk Me retcons things, but then you can look at this and go, this is the original. Well, we may not even know if this is the original. There might be times before that Cooper has tried to save Laura Palmer and different things have happened, resulting in this particular outfit to, what is going to go on in the next one. Like, we don't know how long this infinite loop has gone on.
I'd say
what's that?
I'd say infinite. It's been going on infinite.
I mean, it explains the broken infinity, and it's basically he's looking for the way to stop the infinity loop. Yeah. And
Cooper's a lot like Sisyphus. He's pushing the boulder uphill.
Exactly. In order to keep the whole thing is that Laura Palmer isn't necessarily there to destroy Bob and Jude. It's there to counteract.
Yep.
And that's kind of what this whole thing is. But yeah, so you can look at it and go, the whole first season is its own thing. Like Cooper wasn't able to get her that go around, wasn't able to grab her in the woods. She said she ran off and met with, in that particular loop, Leo Ronette and Jacques. So it retcons things. It's not a hard retcon in a way that some other works have been done. Like, this is more of like, again, a loop retcon. Like, okay, now we're coming off the loop at a different point.
Now we have a different mystery to solve.
Yes, and this one is where is Laura Palmer? Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And this whole thing.
Sam Reform in the final dossier too. We'll get to it when we get to it, but they meant at the end of the book is that it's nobody remembers Laura getting killed. It's like, no, she just went missing. So
Yep, exactly. Laura didn't die. Laura went missing. Yeah, we're jumping ahead, but yes, that's in the final dossier. But yeah, so again, the return of this whole thing was basically the return of we thought the whole time it was, we talked about, I think we threw the audience a little bit differently. We talked about this was the return of Cooper. Really, this was the return of Laura Palmer.
It could be two different things, though.
Yeah.
Because a lot of this was Cooper's return to himself. I mean, that's kind of like that's like the hero's journey is what this season was.
It was the hero's journey, absolutely. But it ultimately led to the return of, yes. So
it worked in two different ways. So.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because again, Lynch is not going to leave things just as the return of David Lynch. No, now we have to go a step further and make it the return of something else to create those layers that David Lynch loves in his work. Yep. Which is why I can see why David Lynch Dune was one of his least favorite things, because it's not nuanced. It's very cut and dry, and that's not Lynch's style. We went into a lot of different things.
This was a good episode. Yeah.
It's a really good episode. It's hard to, I was worried about it because that whole scene, you guys, with the orb and everything is just, it's like episode 8. You could try to describe what's going on, but you got to see it to understand it. But there is some nitpicking I have with this episode, though. That whole part with the fight with Bob and leading up to it, like that whole thing from when Cooper ends up with Mr. C ends up at the Twin Peaks Sheriff Station, to the point where he's down in the lodge or down in the basement with Gordon and Diane. I got the feeling from the acting of the actors in there that nobody really understood what their motivations were in the scene. And that kind of came through a little bit. Like, some of the acting in it was off. And I don't think that was by design. I think it was because there was probably some really confusion around the scenes.
Well, I'm sure, but I mean, I'm not going to nitpick the acting, because we saw Wally fucking Brando, and that was a fucking shit show of an acting scene.
I actually, like I said, this go around, I actually warmed up to Wally Brando a little bit. I'm just saying there's little things here and there in the posturing and the way lines were said a little bit that were like, I could tell the actors didn't really know what was going on. I'm sure it was Lynch saying, "Don't worry about it. Yeah. Just say these lines. Just do this. Trust me."
Yeah, because a lot of it is editing with that scene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I mean, it's not surprising.
No. I mean, again, it's not as bad as what we got with the prequels of the Star Wars, where all it was George Lucas sitting in a chair and was in front of a green screen, and he's just looking at a monitor counting his money. Yep, no, that's good, Liam. Okay. Nope, nailed it, Natalie. So, yeah. And then it ends, obviously, with The World Spins, which is awesome, because if you remember in the original episodes, that plays when Maddie got killed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I thought that was an awesome ending to it. So, all right, Joe, plug time. What do you got going on?
Well, we're off of hiatus for the Joe Down. So we're doing John Wick month. We decided, this year has been fucking terrible, so we're going to treat ourselves to our bread and butter, which is dumb action movies. The nice thing about John Wick is they're dumb and confusing, but they're ultimately like a lot of fun to watch. So, since there's only 3 of them, we have a mystery movie to cap out the year with. So
I'm excited because you haven't even told me what the mystery movie is.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. You're gonna find out when everybody else does.
Yeah, I'm excited to find that out. So, yeah. My world. Well, first of all, I want to say I love the John Wick movies. Like, I typically enjoy really cerebral things, but John Wick is like the perfect popcorn, brainless action movie.
Because you like those martial art movies, right? And there's a lot of that kind of like weird element to it too, like weird.
I do.
It's almost like B kung fu movie shit going on in it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I do. I love that stuff. As a matter of fact, I passed out the other night to Ninja Hunter. So yeah, yeah. I absolutely adore those types of movies.
John Wick kind of fits in that genre too.
It
In a
it
weird way.
does.
Pays a lot of homage to that.
A lot of homage, and it's just, it's crisp. Like the thing with it is that what makes, a martial arts movie is kind of like, Ip Man. If you've seen Ip Man with Donnie Yen, it's so crisp, and it's just, the action scenes are the choreography is just, is painstakingly perfect. And I really feel that way with John Wick. Like they didn't, a lot of Western action movies tend to kind of go a little bit loosey goosey sometimes. Like, all right, that's good enough. I feel like with John Wick, they're like, no, we have to nail it for this part. Especially, I think of John Wick 2. Is John Wick 2 the one with the mirror fight where they had all the mirrors?
Yeah, and the choreography in those movies are just fucking phenomenal. And like the fact that Keanu Reeves does all that, like he doesn't use a stuntman.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't.
He trains a lot. I believe he trains quite a bit for those movies when he does them.
Yeah.
And plus Ian McShane. I fucking love Ian McShane.
Right. Yeah.
Deadwood to yeah. Guy's a fucking treasure.
Yeah, he's phenomenal. And so yeah, you have all, I love those ones, and I'm interested to hear what your mystery movie is going to be. As far as Cast That Movie and the Office podcast, we're still on hiatus for that one. So that's what it is.
Office should be coming back January.
So should Cast That Movie, supposedly. So I'm happy that I'm hoping that will happen. And then I am testing out a podcast this Friday. So we'll see how that goes, and if that turns into anything, if that gets put on the Joe Down, we'll see how it turns out. I don't want to say anything because but it's very, very, very much in the vein of what we do here. Except it will be, if it does succeed, it will be a very clean version of another show that people enjoy.
Well, I hope you don't. I hope you don't cut down Al Strobel in that one.
Well,
I am still just shocked.
Fucking A. It's
people coming up to me in grocery stores like, what is up with that guy you podcast?
Just kicking Al Strobel in the dick and his dyed fucking pubic hair. Holy fuck. So yeah, the next one is the final Twin Peaks episode.
Yeah.
It's been a hell of a journey, dude.
Yeah, it has. It's been a lot of fun, especially with, Voldemort causing us to be stuck in our homes.
Yeah. Voldemort's been a real bitch this year. But it's yeah, this has been a great thing to kind of do and watch. So, and I think I would be surprised if our next episode isn't really long, because I think we'll really discuss quite a few things. I think our next couple of podcasts will probably go a little bit longer, just to warn people, because now we're getting to the end where we're going to be kind of digging into all the different theories and things like that. And I don't want to, cut down anyone else's theories. But again, there was that one guy who said, this is the definitive Twin Peaks answer. Yeah. Fuck you.
Yeah, people were telling me to check it out, and then when he basically said that right at the start, I was like, well, this isn't going to bode well. And then I got, an hour into it, and I was like, I can't listen to this guy. Like, to be that sure of your theory on something that's highly, interpretive,
yes,
feels like a fool's errand. At that.
And not to say that he has good
points. It's just
he has very good points. I want to bring that. It was the delivery.
Yeah,
it was the delivery of the message that I felt was what was off-putting,
and the attitude with it.
Mm-hmm.
It was just it turned me off right out the gate. I was just like, oh, here we go.
Yep, because here's the thing, and I'm going to be fair warning on the final podcast we do of the book. It's not to shit on the guy in any way, shape, or form, and I don't think we'll be shitting on him in any sense.
Not more Strobel shit, huh?
No, but I think we will be bringing up like this person's thoughts and how it fits into our own theories, right?
Yeah.
Not that our theories are correct, like. I'm never going to sit there and say that, I have the definitive or you have the definitive or anyone has the definitive outside of David Lynch and Mark Frost. And even them, I bet dollars to fucking donuts that David Lynch has a different idea, a slightly different diverging idea than Mark Frost does when it comes to Twin Peaks.
Yeah, and I'm sure neither of them understand everything completely about their own creation either.
No, because they left it up to some ambiguity to allow for interpretation. And that was kind of the point. Is there some objective symbolism, like when David Lynch smashes the TV in Fire Walk with Me at the very beginning? Abso-fucking-lutely. But is that what the whole thing is about? No. Is the whole thing about numerology? No. Is the whole thing about electricity? No. Is the whole thing about... Is it some kind of narrative that television and the combination of the fight between the medium of television versus film versus literature? No. You could take those things from it, but none of those things are. I will never say that this is the definitive answer to Twin Peaks.
Yeah, because there probably isn't one.
And I think that's by design. And I think that's
art. It's art. It's open interpretation. You don't look at a painting and be like, I'm 100% right on what this painting represents. It represents different things to different people.
Yeah, because the thing is that you can have. I mean, this is one of the. I think this is why I think I love Lynch, because he'll sit there and he won't make his comment. Like, I'm not going to say what my art's about because it's my art. That's to me. I'm not going to take away anyone other's idea of what art means to them. And there are some artists out there that are like, no. This is what this meant. This is what you know what I mean. And it kind of takes away from some of the thing. Like, well, no, you left it open. You left your movie or your artwork or this open to interpretation. So why are you being so definitive about what this exactly means? I mean, to be fair, the one thing I would argue about real quick would be that, I don't understand how a bunch of people that grew up with Star Wars about a bunch of rebels taking out Empire suddenly think that, are Trump supporters. I don't understand it. I don't know how you missed the narrative.
Why do you hate America, Paul? I was under the impression this was a pro-Trump Twin Peaks podcast.
Oh, fuck. If that's the case, then you know what? I'm sure anyone that was left when Denise came on board. They bowed out the minute Denise was portrayed as a serious character. So no, I just, again, but I want to get in these things, and like, I'm really interested because I don't know if you've started reading the other book, The Skeleton Key. I have, and there's some really interesting interpretation. I'm going to say right now, of course, I don't agree with everything, but there's some really interesting takes in that book.
All right.
All right. So, Joe, with that, what do we got left, buddy?
What year is this?